A white nationalist and Trump supporter that was accused of assaulting a young African-American protester at a Trump rally in Kentucky back during his campaign is now flipping the script, okay? He is actually trying to sue Trump, saying that Trump incited violence, okay? He incited the violence that this man committed. All right, so I know that sounds very confusing, but I'm gonna get into it. So Matthew Heimbach is a leader of the white supremacist Traditionalist Youth Network and a vocal Trump supporter during the campaign. So there's actually video of him assaulting this young African-American woman. So let's take a look at that.
Get out. You know, in the old days, which isn't so long ago.
So as you can see in the video, Matthew is the one with the red MAGA hat, all right? And he's pushing this woman out, and he's saying that the fact that Trump said, "Get out of here," multiple times was the reason that he assaulted this woman. And so Trump should be to blame because now he is facing some legal ramifications for doing this. Now, these protesters who were kicked out filed civil assault and battery claims against Heimbach and 2 other Trump supporters and accused Trump of inciting his supporters. Now, Matthew Heimbach, who's actually serving as his own representation for this lawsuit, claims in his federal court filing that he acted pursuant to the directives and requests of Donald J. Trump and Donald J. Trump for president, and that if he's found liable for damages, any liability must be shifted to one or both of them. Now, I want to read a few other things from his claims because it's quite humorous, actually. So he denies physically assaulting any of these protesters, but he also levies blame at the protesters, writing that they provoked a response, okay, by trying to disrupt a free assembly and campaign event to infringe rights of the defendants and other attendees to freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom to vote, and other constitutional rights. Presumably, they also have freedom of speech, but apparently he forgot to mention that here. Now, he writes that he acted, if at all, in self-defense, okay?
You just saw the video.
As well as in reasonable defense of others, while also contending that he was acting under Trump's instruction. Now, my favorite piece of this, and I'm gonna read this out to you guys, is that he talks about how Trump is a world famous businessman, okay, who relies on various professionals, including attorneys. So the fact that he said anything to get them out of here, whatever, he was acting under that information, and so he had to accept the knowledge of such a world famous businessman.
Yep. Oh, well, of course.
Yes, yes.
So many things that I love about this story. So first of all, it doesn't matter if you're right wing or left wing. You don't have the right to push people around at rallies, even if they're disrupting the rallies. You wait for the authorities, and the authorities can remove the person if they're trespassing, okay? So it's no defense to say, oh, I don't know, she was also saying things. It's just the worst defense in the world. So I love that this white nationalist is defending himself because he's an idiot and he's gonna get himself in further trouble. So second of all, you saw the assault right there in the video. To say that, I don't know, she was bothering me is not a legal defense, or that she was speaking next to me is not a legal defense for assault.
Right.
And then he goes on to basically explain that she had it coming, and he kind of liked that he did it and that Trump made him do it.
Yeah.
Okay, but he's saying, in case I owe money though, world-class businessman Donald Trump should pay for it. He to me, and it's absurd, it's preposterous, he's an idiot, but there is a tiny bit of validity to the claim. As you watch that video, he's certainly liable as well. It's not like, and it's so funny, they always say, oh, liberals like to be victims and stuff. But I thought personal responsibility and all that. Did you or didn't you do it? You did do it, right? So why don't you take personal responsibility for what you did?
Right.
We can see you doing it right there, right? Now you can see him mouthing "get out," but as we ran the video with audio the first time around, then you heard a giant "get out." That wasn't Heimbach. No. That was Donald Trump. So he was instructing people to get him out, and then we cut it, but he went on to say, and they made a famous clip about this. In the old days, they used to take him out in stretchers, he said. Now, when you tell the crowd that, and they want to go back to the old days, and you have on the hat, "Make America Great Again," right?
Yeah.
What are you telling them to do?
I'm split on this. I hear what you're saying. The only reason that I have my reservations as to say that Donald Trump has influence on this. Of course, like Donald Trump's, the America that he is pushing forward today is going to encourage people to act in a certain way more so than anything else. But particularly when I do videos talking about Black Lives Matter in the message that it's been put across, and what I feel is such a positive message to put across in America today, many people will see an act of atrocity and they'll often place that with Black Lives Matter, and they'll say that they caused that. That was their result. Like, what they are standing for meant that the person who was going to come out and commit such an atrocity, they need to take blame for that because that's something they've infused. When no, it's not. Like, I just feel like you can commit an atrocity and you can put it towards anything. You could go out in the middle of the street and commit something completely awful and say I'm an ISIS member, and people would say you're part of ISIS. So I don't like to say that people who are out there committing these acts of evil and proclaiming that Donald Trump is responsible for it is because of Donald Trump. Like, this guy specifically in this example was going to be an idiot regardless. He had that evil within him. He was, as we mentioned there, part of a white nationalist group and has pushed forward these prejudices. The fact that Donald Trump was being aggressive in his notion might have played a role in that, but I don't want to take any blame away from this imbecile. I want it to specifically be on him. He deserves the punishment for being a racist. That's it. He deserves the punishment. I don't want to sugarcoat it any other way. The same way that if someone goes out and kills a police officer and people try to attest it as a Black Lives Matter shooting, no, it's not. That's an evil individual committing an atrocity. Don't try and deflect it away from the individual.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I agree with you on that. I don't think that Donald Trump is directly responsible for this case, but I do think this illustrates sort of this culture of no accountability. I mean, that is being exemplified right now in the highest seat in the entire country. He doesn't, it doesn't hold himself accountable for anything, and so this guy is just sort of copying that sort of, it's not my fault, it's his fault because he told me to do it. And like, just because somebody tells you to do something doesn't mean you have to do it. You still have human agency. And so you have to be responsible for your actions.
Yeah. Well, we've all heard our mom say, just because somebody else is jumping off a bridge doesn't mean you should jump off a bridge. Yeah. All of that is true, but Trump went further. In those rallies, he said, hey, if you do something and they sue you, I'll pay for it. He literally said that. So I think it's interesting to, if I was a judge, I would hear it out. I'm not saying I know exactly how I would rule. It would depend on the facts of the case and the particular laws of that state. But it's worth considering. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't take any responsibility away from Heimbach, and you could find both responsible. And to Francis' point about what a racist he is, he once disturbed a conservative conference, CPAC, with his friend Scott Terry. When they got an interview with, in a fight with other conservatives, and when one of the conservatives said that that it's okay, he forgave his slave masters, presumably an African American. This guy's friend Heimbach's friend Terry said, "Forgive him for what? Giving him shelter and food." So this is the mindset. Like they don't like black people, and there's a black person, and I don't know that he did it right.
Yeah, double whammy.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter that she's black in terms of the law because assault is assault. Right. I don't know that rises to a hate crime, but clearly you have assault there. Clearly there should be consequences for that. There should have been criminal consequences, let alone civil consequences. But in the civil case, both Trump and Heimbach could pay if they're both responsible.
So my question to you then is, do you feel that when that starts to become somewhat of the narrative in this story, do you not feel that we're moving into murky territory, a territory that I frankly despise when it comes to acts of atrocity? And it's usually the right wing that are pushing this for the left. If someone goes out and kills or commits an atrocity in the name of Black Lives Matter, then all of a sudden Black Lives Matter is responsible for that. Do you see a similarity there? And that's often what the right wing pushes forward.
Yeah, no, but it's a little different, right? So, fair point, Francis. So if you say, hey, Sean Hannity made me do it, well, no, that's too removed. Sean Hannity wasn't at that rally, and Sean Hannity might generally encourage you to do X, Y, or Z, but he didn't make you push that woman, and I can't stand anything Sean Hannity says, et cetera. But Trump was at the rally directing his supporters, and he said, get out. In other rallies, and this is why it's an interesting court case, in other rallies, he said, to commit acts of violence, and that he would pay for it if you got sued. He literally said it, right? That's why I think it's different. If somebody who was an official leader of Black Lives Matter, which has never happened, right, said go out and kick that guy's ass, and I'll pay for it if you get sued, then I would say, yeah, that's an interesting court case.
Well, let's
right, but they haven't.
Let's look at this even more broadly, right? Because this was candidate Trump who's saying this, right? And so this guy is just sort of like going with the flow, thinking that he's gonna be protected by this famous businessman. Now we have President Trump. Now, if he goes out and says things like, hey, I'll protect you under the law if you do X, Y, Z, if you incite violence, if you do some sort of act of bigotry, whatever it may be, I mean, people will be, moved to act on that, and that's really frightening when you see how willing people. If he really felt that Donald Trump was giving him permission to do this as just a candidate, how scary is that? What Donald Trump could potentially say as a president?
Our reporter Jordan Chatton broke the Donna Brazil story. He was right; she just apologized for it. Help us get more reporters like that. You're the one responsible for that. Thank you, and let's do more right now at tytnetwork.com/go.